Hey, this is Steve Bloom, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Hello and welcome to episode 76 of the Cinema Geeks. I am one of your Cinema Geeks, Optimus Solo. Joining me is Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. And of course, Hard Candy Mandy. Hello.
Hello, we're back.
We're back and took a little bit of a hiatus over the holidays. Had some scheduling conflicts, some technical issues, and these things called holidays. So that and the fact that about, 3 dozen movies came out, it seems like, on Christmas Day or the week before or the week after. So we've just all been catching up with movies and doing family things. But we're back. It's 2016, and we're bringing you a special episode to conclude our series of our top list of the half decade. That's going to kick off the fun here in 2016. We're going to give you a 2-part episode of our top 20 films of the half decade, and then we'll be back with all the fun year-end / year-beginning stuff that we normally do. So top movies of the year from last year, most anticipated for 2016, box office predictions for 2016, and then that'll all just run into the Oscar fund. So a lot of stuff coming up. Dan, how was your holiday?
Oh, it was mighty nice. I went home for the holidays where I grew up, which was nice because I've not been there since the summertime. So it was a good time. Very busy. So much so that I ended up getting a cold. So if I sound awful more so than usual this episode, I do apologize.
Amanda, how was your holiday?
I think Santa was better to me than I deserved, probably. I think that's what normally is the theme, so it's pretty good.
He's old and senile, so...
It's just this face. I fool everybody with this angelic baby face.
But yeah, the holidays were good. We're busy, that's for sure. They flew right by, but we're definitely excited for all the fun stuff coming up in 2016. Dan, anything that you want to preface or get out there before we start attacking the first half of our list?
No. I mean, I would say, like, when I ended up doing this list, I don't know how many times. So I ended up thinking, like, these are just the top 20 films that affected me this past decade in whatever way. There may be maybe more prestigious films or ones that are more personal choices that are on here. But it's the only way I with so many movies, I feel like I could accurately rank them. So that's the way I went.
And I'm with you. I think I did my version a couple different times. Originally, we were going to do top 50, I believe, and then we were going to do 30 or 25 or 20 or 10. We kept going back and forth with how many numbers we were going to do. And no matter what number we settled on, it was going to be a hard task for sure to try to pack those 5 years into any type of list. But I kind of am with you. I have some more personal favorites or things that affected me on a personal level. I also have some that I just think represent those 5 years, even if they might not be the most, Oscar critically acclaimed, award-worthy movie. But I do have some of those in there as well. Amanda, how was your first attempt of narrowing down this half-decade list, and how did you come up with your 20?
Well, I was writing them each time, like I wasn't typing them like with you and your cool spreadsheet. So I have like a ton of different versions of this written over and over again. And it's definitely a very personal list. I don't think there's anything that's too critically acclaimed on my list. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. Well, why don't you start us off with your number 20 pick?
Well, my criteria was that I left off anything animated, pretty much everything comic book, because those two would definitely just dominate my list completely. And I do have a couple cheats, of course. So my number 20, and this is going to be the one that I probably get the most hate for, and that's The Heat from 2013 with Sandy B and Tammy.
And Tammy? Is that just what we call her now?
That's just what we call her now. So this movie has a ton of rewatchability for me. I had so much fun with it. I just wanted to hang out with these broads. So this is one I own and will definitely rewatch, and has become one of my faves.
I don't want to see me. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a personal choice. I actually like The Heat. I think I do enjoy that movie. I don't know if I'd put it in my top 20, but I understand, being a fan why you enjoy it. So I get that. I don't think it's a bad movie by any choice. I enjoy. They definitely have a good chemistry, and it's good seeing good R-rated comedy, which we're starting to get a resurgence of, which is kind of cool. So.
Yeah.
And I'm safe from commenting because I haven't seen the film, so somehow I've avoided that. So
hey, it's got Bill Burr in it, so it's got that going for it too.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point in 2016 I will be subjected to watch that film, and then I can report back. Dan, how about you? What's your number 20?
I guess my number 20 is kind of a cheat, because I guess technically it's a 2009 movie, but it was released in the U.S. in 2010, so... but it's from a director that you're aware of, Kevin, because I know you're a big fan of Snowpiercer, and it comes from Bong Joon-ho, but it's not Snowpiercer, it's his 2010 film, Mother. It's a South Korean film, obviously not North Korean, because that would be weird. But it's about this mother, obviously, and her trying to prove the innocence of her son, who obviously has a mental disability and has basically been charged with murder. And if you know anything about Bong Joon-ho, is that his films, even if you look at something like Snowpiercer, have just like a tonality to them that's ever changing, and that's so much true in Mother. And it's encapsulated the most in its two bookend shots, where they're very similar shots, but just the context of them completely changes what they represent, and how in the journey that the movie goes through. At times it's more comedic, at times it's more dramatic, shocking. It's a little bit of everything, but it's really powered through its performance of its main character. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce her name and butcher it in that way, but I don't know if like I said, this came out in 2010, and this is when I was starting to getting into movies of this nature about 5-6 years ago, when I was really getting into podcasts, and that's really one of the big reasons I put it on here, was because of it kind of opened the door for me to South Korean film and the abundance that was there. So I felt like I had to find a place for it. It was my favorite film of the time in 2010 when I saw it. So, but yeah, that's my number 20 pick.
And I don't remember what we were doing as far as the network goes in 2010, but we must have been interacting in some way, shape, or form, because I do remember you championing this film quite a bit. And for some reason, I had forgot about it after the fact, and I still haven't caught up with it. And especially with Snowpiercer, I would like to catch up with that and see what that one's like, because I remember a lot of good things being said about it back in 2010.
Yeah, I would definitely advise it. It was on Netflix for the longest time. I don't think it's still there, but I would, if you get the chance, I think it's worth a watch.
All right. For my number 20, I'm not going that far back. We're only going back to 2014, which I guess I can't say is last year anymore, but we're going to 2014, the last year of the half decade that we're covering. A film I think pretty much everybody is familiar with. This is not one that I would have thought would have been on my list right away after I watched it, but the more time that's gone past, the more it's grown on me, and the more I think it's elevated itself a little bit for me. And that would be from 2014, the film Calvary. It was one of very few films in 2014 that did rise to the top for me. And I just think Brendan Gleeson is amazing, first of all, and just about anything he does. And I just think there's a lot of rich thematic stuff going on in that film. And it's, like I said, it's a film that kind of has a longer life than just the runtime, and it can kind of give you a lot of things to think about and ponder as you kind of dissect it or think about it as the weeks go by, months go by after you've seen it. So that's my number 20, Calvary.
Yeah, I had that in my top 10, I guess, whenever that movie came out 2 years ago or last year, however you want to say it. But I agree. I especially from the opening and just the opening shot of just Brendan Gleeson, I think it's kind of just like, yeah, that dude is a legit actor. So, and so is his son now. So, who has a really great little role in that movie as well.
Yeah. All right, Amanda, that means it's time for your number 19.
Okay, just want to say that this half of my list is probably going to be pretty weird and definitely not like your guys's, but these all definitely affected me and something that I held as something pretty awesome. And this is one of those. It's The Wolfman from 2010 with Anthony Hopkins, Benicio del Toro, and Emily Blunt, I believe. And I think this was a really, really cool adaptation. I think it's probably one of the coolest werewolf transformations I've ever seen, ever. And I love Benicio del Toro and everything. Anthony Hopkins was so creepy in this, even more so than probably Hannibal at some points. So I really, really enjoyed this movie. I go to sleep to this movie. I can watch it over and over again, and I just love how dark it is, and just it's got its own look. I can say that, but it's one that I definitely can
Number
rewatch.
1, I'm not going to try to predict a single movie that's going to come on your list. Number 2, I'm not sure how many picks we're going to have before I've seen a movie that's on your list either, so I can't comment too much on The Wolfman. Dan, have you seen it?
I have not. I remember
What?
I know, wanting to see it when it came out, but I never did. I did see the transformation scene that you're speaking of, and I do know that that was highly praised at the time for sure, just special effects wise. So, but I have not seen The Wolfman. No.
Oh, please do.
Please do. I'm just going to apparently have a whole list of movies I have to watch and report back now after this. So, Dan, what about you? Where are you going for number 19?
Well, my number 19, I know, is one that you did see, Kevin, and it's again one from 2013. And it's funny because it's that we're around the holidays, because when the holidays tend to happen now, this is like the first movie I think of, mainly because of how much like the family dynamics in this remind me of my family, mostly when you see scenes of these families just kind of sitting kind of quietly in front of TVs, not saying anything or just talking about traffic. And it was one of the funniest films of the last decade for me. Not necessarily a comedy, and that's Nebraska. Obviously with Bruce Dern, and one of my favorite performances in the last few years. I was not really truly familiar with him until this came up, and I just love that and his relationship with Will Forte, and it ends on such a sweet little note as well. And I don't know, it just hit me in all the right places. I think it looks great. I even the poster for itself. I don't know, there's something to it. Just is amazing. The using black and white, I think, was really effective, especially with the look of Bruce Dern's face. You just see the wornness on him, and everything it goes through. It's got a really subtle sense of humor that I enjoy as well. So I don't know. I find it's endlessly rewatchable. It's just one of those movies. So I don't know much more than to say in it. But again, it surprised me in how much I liked it. It's not necessarily the most complex film, which is kind of straightforward, but it's kind of what I like about it. It's just simple and to the point.
Yeah, I think you said it well, too, as far as something that surprised you, because I wasn't expecting to like that one as much as I ended up liking it either. It's definitely, I think, one of the best films of that year, and the performances, not just with Bruce Dern, but with basically the whole cast, was pretty amazing, and a couple other ones that were surprising that I didn't necessarily think could be pulled off by the actors that were in charge of it. I think it's very humorous, but it also has a lot of more, I don't want to say sentimental in like a cliche way, but more thoughtful and provoking moments as well. And like you said, the family dynamic is just something that's real. It's something that's genuine, and you don't always get that in a lot of films in Hollywood and stuff like that. So I think that's a great pick. Yeah, that's one. Finally, we have one that Amanda needs to watch, so we'll put that on her list. So, for my number 19, this movie was, again, this was before I was watching over 100 movies a year and getting into the podcasting thing kind of full force. It's coming from 2011, but I just remember seeing this one and just being kind of blown away by a lot of the different aspects of that, and that would be The Descendants from 2011, starring George Clooney and a very early younger version of Shailene Woodley before anybody really knew who she was. But again, I think it goes back to what you were saying with Nebraska, Dan. It's dealing with that family dynamic and dealing with the idea of, even though it's technically not a parent family, but it's basically George Clooney trying to run the show by himself, and that I could connect with a lot on a personal level. And I just thought, like we were saying with Nebraska, there was a lot of real, genuine moments that they didn't necessarily try to sugarcoat or pull any punches. And I just thought it was a lot of fun, humorous, and touching at the same time. So a lot of the same reasons why I like Nebraska is why I put Descendants on my list. 2
Alexander Payne movies back to back. So there you go.
Yeah, craziness. All right, Amanda, what do you have for number 18?
Let's continue with the creepy vibe that's going on my list here. My number 18 is Cabin in the Woods from 2012 with the Hemsworth. I think this was...
Which Hemsworth?
The Hemsworth.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to the other Hemsworth eventually, but this is
for
the
Expendables
Hemsworth.
3?
Of course. But this, I really liked the concept of this. I thought it was really cool. I loved so much about this film, and this is another one that I'm going to rewatch. I think that's probably a theme on my list, is something that I can rewatch and still get the same effect out of me.
And this is a film on your list that I have seen. So
You have, yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of the horror genre, but I actually quite enjoyed that film and what it was doing, and I guess the motto or the message it was trying to get across, and it, not taking itself super seriously. And I thought it was a lot of fun too. So I think a lot of people spoke pretty highly of that when it came out.
I think it took a weird turn, but I mean,
it was actually when we did our top 10 science fiction, I put it in there. Like, it was my top 10 sci-fi for the year. And,
right.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of Bradley Whitford, and him and Jenkins have a really great dynamic in this. They're probably my favorite part in the entire film. But yeah, I love Captain Wood, so good call.
All right, we're all in support of that one, because it's not just because it's one we've seen either. All right, Dan, what do you have for your number 18?
Another 18 is probably another personal choice, probably a movie I like more than anyone. And I don't even really know why, because I don't know, something about it ended up connecting with me in a visceral level. And that's Startup. Came out 2 years ago. Kind of came out of nowhere. I ended up watching it just because I've heard good things, and I was kind of blown away with what I saw. Jack O'Connell plays this young kid who's been in jail basically his juvie's entire life, and he gets called up or starred up into the full-scale adult prison where his strange father ends up being. But I think what really got me with this film are just the extreme intensity that's throughout, and just how much is told. There's these scenes where you have kind of counseling sections, and there's so much tension throughout the entire thing, and it's just guys in a room talking. And it really, Jack O'Connell impressed me, and also has one of my favorite actors of the last decade, Ben Mendelsohn, as well, who's gives a fantastic performance. So I don't know, it ended up, it's something about it just impresses me. Just its ability to really just build this character. And I mean, it does get a little bit sloppy near the end, I guess, but I ended up really enjoying it. So, did you say estranged father or strange father? I said estranged father.
I think he fits both bills.
Yeah,
but
he's a little bit of both. But yeah, he's a kind of like 5'7", yet he ends up acts like he's like on top of the world. So
right. No, I think this is a good pick. I don't think you're alone with the appreciation for this film. It's actually written down on my sheet of honorable mentions for this list, because it was definitely one that was in high consideration for making my list. It didn't quite make it in the end, but I totally understand why. This is one that we caught up with this last year, I think, as a homework assignment from you, and I'm in full support of that one. Amanda, what do you think of Startup?
Yeah, I definitely considered it for my list. I enjoyed it. I just couldn't find room on my list for it, but definitely a good pick.
All right. Well, my number 18, like Dan said with his, is strictly a personal choice, and you said that you probably love your 18 more than anybody else. I think that's an understatement when it comes to my 18, because I literally am, I think, the only person that truly loves this film. And I don't know why either. It just, for some reason, resonated with me, and I liked a lot of the artistic choices. Like I said, I know a lot of the other people don't love it and wouldn't necessarily rank it this high, but it is from 2013, and that would be The Book Thief. Obviously, Dan, I've been championing this one the whole way around. It was on my top 10 list in 2013, even though it was not on a single other human being's top 10 list for that year. And I've been talking about it ever since. I know you've seen it recently and got some exposure to it. And like I said, I know I'm overrating this. I guess I don't want to use that word, but I'm maybe heaping more love on this film than it deserves, but for some reason it struck a personal chord with me, so I wanted to give it some more love, I guess.
Yeah, you gave that to me for homework assignment as well, and I did like it more than I thought I would, because I thought it'd be just this kind of, I don't know, by the books numbers of a Holocaust movie, but I think it's definitely more than that, and great score by John Williams as well, and really solid child performances throughout it too, so I would definitely think that's worth people checking out, and it's not, I don't know, it got hammered, and I don't know if it's just because people just kind of prejudged it beforehand, but I think it's much better than people give it the credit for.
Thank you. Amanda has not seen that, but I got it for Christmas, so she'll be catching up with that real soon. So, Amanda, where are you taking us, and what type of horror film do you have for us at number 17?
Stepping away from horror slightly for a little bit here. I'm taking it to 2013, Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh, man, the geeks are going to be up in arms in either applauding or shouting at you. I don't know what they're going to do.
It is pretty low. I really liked I liked all the characters, all the performances in this. I had a great time with all of it. And the Hemsworth was in it briefly. Just saying. Oh no, was it the other one? That's not this one, was it?
What? Chris Pine's in?
He was the dad.
It's Thor is the dad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The dad. Yeah. You can't really recognize him. He's
not
the
original
buff.
Star Trek in 2009.
Yeah. He's not as buff, but I'm really digging the franchise, and I'm excited for the next installment to come out. So I had to find some room on here.
I don't nearly have the problem with Star Trek Into Darkness as so many quote-unquote Trekkies seem to have. I enjoyed it just about as much as I did the 2009, I believe it was, the original reboot there. I'm enjoying what they're doing with that too. I don't necessarily see the problems that everybody else sees. I think if you just allow yourself to have some fun with it, it's an entertaining time, and I think it's better than a lot of the other blockbusters you get throughout the year. So I like Into Darkness.
I do too, more so than most. I do like the 2009 one a lot more. I had some issues with Into the Darkness, mostly but not necessarily to the level that people make it out to be the worst Star Trek movie ever. And I'm like, have you seen like Star Trek 5? Or there's like so many bad Star Trek movies. It's not even close. It's not even like the top 5 worst. So
right. All right, so Star Trek making an appearance on our list here. Dan, what do you have next?
I should have made a note that I did include documentaries in my top 20. I know it's hard to kind of compare them to regular films, but for me, like, documentaries are a huge part of my movie-going experience or movie viewing experience, so I had to include them someplace. So you will see a couple of them throughout, and the first one I'm going to talk about is 2010 Senna. It's a documentary that's actually made up of completely of archival footage, and it's about this IndyCar driver and his rivalry with other IndyCar drivers. This infamous Senna, who is one of the most popular drivers of his time and most accomplished. I'm not a race car fan at all. Like, I don't know the difference between like an IndyCar or NASCAR. I have no idea. But it's just a really compelling human story that you don't even need that. And I was just impressed with the ability to tell this story. There's no real interviews, no talking heads, no narration. It's just using actual footage to tell the story. And the same director did a similar documentary this year, which I haven't seen yet, Amy. So I was looking forward to checking that. It's the same thing where it's just using archival footage and personal footage and things like that. But it's just really well edited, real well put together. And like I said, even if you're not a fan of racing or sports, it's not, that's a part of it, but it makes it interesting. So I it's to me one of the best put together documentaries of the last decade by far.
All right. Yeah, I think what was keeping me away from that one is my distaste for the NASCAR / whatever IndyCar, race car, stock car. I don't know what the terms are, but yeah, maybe I should give it a chance. Yeah, Hot Wheels. I don't know. It's something to do with that, but I'll have to give it a chance at some point here. For my next one, I'm actually going to go back all the way to 2011, but it is going to be the film that I saw most recently. So just a recent catch up here that we did over the holiday season or right beforehand. And I think it's worthy enough to be put on this list. I think a lot of other people would also have it on a list of top films of the half decade. They'd probably be mad that I don't have it higher. And maybe that's just because I just recently saw it and want some more time to kind of reflect on it a little bit, because I think, the last one to the party on this one. And that is 2011's film Drive. I think I said everything.
I'm kind of shocked you like that movie, to be honest with you. I am shocked.
No, I actually did like the film.
Yeah.
And that's just with the most, like I said, I just saw it less than a month ago, so I think I need to watch it a second time to just kind of have a chance to kind of fully dissect it a little bit, and then sit on it and then see where it ends up after that. But my opinion was that I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed the tone of it. I enjoyed Gosling and just kind of everything that was happening with it. I know everybody else has seen it multiple times since then. Amanda, I think that was her third time seeing it, at least. And I know a lot of people have been championing it for a long time, and I just, for some reason, hadn't caught up to it. But I'm glad I did, and I think it's definitely worthy of being in the discussion for one of the best films of the half decade.
Well, I'm not going to say about it right now. Maybe later.
All right. Well, apparently we'll talk about this film a little bit later, so everybody can save their thoughts. So, Amanda, what's up for your number 16?
Let's get into some comedy here. I got a 2010, and that's The Other Guys. Nice. With Will and Marky Mark. I think this is one of the most quotable movies for me. I love their chemistry. I had a lot of fun with their partner dynamics, or whatever you want to call it. I think even the weird little thing that they had with Sam Jackson and The Rock for that brief little bit.
That was one of the most shocking moments of that year, I think, in film.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody went into that film expecting that to happen like it did.
But yeah, I mean, I had a blast with this, and this is another one that I'm going to rewatch over and over again.
I need to rewatch. I haven't seen that in a while. This is actually the last comedy to not make my list. It was, if I had included one more comedy, it would have been this one, and I had a ton of fun with this one, and it's one of those that stands out in the year-by-year thing that we seem to get lately, where there's hardly any comedies that stand out, at least not like quote-unquote comedies. It seems like everybody's favorite comedies these days are not, full-on comedies. They're something that mixes some other type of genre, or they're just a genre film that is funny. It's not like you're straight up billed as a comedy, and this is one of those that actually paid off, unlike the dozens of others that we get on a yearly basis. So I'm a big fan of the other guys.
Yeah, actually, we watched. It was on TV, like in someone's house I was at over the holidays. I'm like, yeah, man, you just forget how funny that movie is. It's quite good. So great choice.
All right, Dan, what is your number 16?
For my number 16, I'm normally not a fan of 3D, but there are occasions where it ends up working and really even, I think, making the film better. And I think that happens with my number 16 choice, which I think is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen, and that is Life of Pi. Ang Lee's visual, striking story about a boy in a boat with a tiger that is, I don't know, all levels of awesome, really, and a great story. I completely love the ending and how it kind of recontextualizes itself and its stance on religion and really like humanity as a whole. And special effects wise, it is fantastic. And I don't know, it's a movie that is so much. If anything, maybe I don't have it high enough, but it's a great feat and an impressive performance by an actor doing his first movie ever, which is kind of insane considering the situation. So it's quite the film, and I think it shows how great of a director Ang Lee can be, because his movies can really cover the gamut from this to like Brokeback Mountain. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. So my number 16 is Life of Pi.
I think one of the most impressive parts of that film, when you're talking about the visual aspects, and it's been said multiple times, so I'm kind of a broken record, but the whole idea that you cannot tell when that tiger is real and when it's not, it just is. You have to convince yourself, you have to remind yourself that that's CG at times, and it's just, and that adds to the idea of the performance from the actor there, and I can't remember his name, but the idea that you're giving that performance basically without anybody else's help. You're performing against visuals that aren't there. So I think that's impressive. I think, like you said, just from a visual standpoint, from an effect standpoint, and that's not even touching the story and the thematic elements that you get throughout and that's the strongest part of that film. So it has a lot working for it. So I totally agree with you on that one. All right. For my number 16, Amanda, you might be eliminating animated films and superhero films, but I could not do the same. And if there is a superhero film that I think at least should be involved in the discussion of the top films of the half decade, I think you could make the argument for a couple, actually. But the one that I think was the most impressive for how it did not fail is the film from 2012, Marvel's The Avengers. I know you could make an argument for some of the Captain America films or the X-Men films, and I wouldn't disagree with you on those. The reason I decided to put Avengers on there, though, out of all those, is just because it just shouldn't have worked. We saw why it shouldn't have worked, I guess, a little bit with Age of Ultron, but just putting all of those guys and then trying to decide and decipher how you're going to share the screen time, how you're going to kind of let it be fun, but still, let story progress and this, that, and the other. And for some reason with Avengers, it seemed that it all clicked pretty well, and it kind of went off without a hitch. I think there's a lot of funny parts. There's good action. There's good character moments. So I think it paid off big time for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I don't know if they're going to be able to recapture that. Maybe they will with Captain America Civil War this year, but up to this point, it's the best collaboration film that they've done. So I put Avengers on my list.
Definitely. I think if I'm just straight up like movie experiences, it's one of my favorites the last 5 years for sure. Just
Right.
being in that theater, hearing the cheering, it was quite the event. So,
and I think one of the criteria and the reason why it's on my list for the half decade is because I wanted to put some films on there that were representative of those 5 years, and I don't think you can do that without at least putting a superhero film on there, because it's been such a huge part of the of film in the last 5 years with the 30 plus superhero films we seem to have gotten. But so for that reason, I just wanted to put some type of representation for superhero films amongst this part of the decade.
Well, thanks for shitting all over my criteria.
No, if you were eliminating that, we already did our top 10 superhero films, so I totally get not putting them on here. It was just one of the things that I wanted to include, but I don't fault you for not putting them on your list.
Like Thor 2. Guardians of the Galaxy.
All right, Amanda, that means it's your turn for number 15.
Let's bring it back to 2010 with another scary joint with Insidious. This movie scared the crap out of me so bad. I think that...
You're just getting back at the fact that we didn't do a top 10 horror film.
God damn it, yes. I don't need your horror list. I got my own right here. It sparked its own little mini franchise. I mean, it's got 3 out now, I think, and plus, The Conjuring and things like that. It's got even spin-offs now. So I think that this started its own little resurgence of what horror can be. I mean, it scared the crap out of me, and it's the same kind of haunting or the paranormal feel, but it bumped it up a level, and it took it there for me.
It actually, I did see Insidious. It did scare me. I mean, the thing I keep thinking about, there's like a little kid ghost dancing that still haunts my dreams. It's something about it. It's with the Tiny Tim music. It's just, yeah. That's
all I need to hear to know that I should never watch this film. So
I recently saw Insidious 3, and I guess not recently. It's been a little while now. I'm able to sleep in the room after Kevin has left for the day by myself and not be terrified, because there's some scenes that really stuck with me. And yeah, so yeah, Insidious 2010.
Dan, before I get scared anymore by these stories of these scary movies, what's your number 15?
Well, my number 15 is definitely not a scary movie. Again, it's a documentary, and it's a documentary Buck. It's this documentary that is kind of based upon a movie, not based upon, but really the behind-the-scenes story in a little bit of the man who inspired the movie The Horse Whisperer. It sounds kind of an odd choice for a documentary, but it really ends up working, because what you have is this guy who kind of has this complex life and victim of child abuse, and he finds this kinship with horses and this ability to really kind of take these horses that others can't kind of seem to handle and break them down and be able to really train them. And it's this really personal story, and I know the documentaries that tend to get a lot of attention are the cause documentaries or things like that, and Buck is one that's not going to do that and not going to really get the Oscar attention, because it's really just a story about a man and the really personal journey. There's a really kind of heartbreaking scene where you see him dealing with a horse that was been kind of mistreated, and you can kind of see the effect it has on him. And it's this guy that, is this classic cowboy with the hat and the boots, but I think you kind of really get to know him and get to see what kind of shaped him into the person that he is, and you find out he's a lot more than what you would think of the Horse Whisperer to be. So again, one that does not nearly necessarily get the attention that it should. But again, the number 16 we're on is Buck.
15. My 15, number.
Geez, I can't count.
That's right. My numbers are all crossed off and rewritten over and stuff like that, so I can barely tell what mine are as well. For my number 15, if Amanda didn't have a polarizing film with Star Trek Into Darkness, I think for my 15 it might be the most polarizing film of the last, well, I shouldn't say the most polarizing film, but one of the most polarizing films at least of 2014. There's a whole lot of people that hate it. There's also a whole lot of people that love it. I like it for what it represents in the genre and kind of the spectacle and the movie-going experience, so I am going to put at my number 15 Interstellar. Like I said, I know there's a lot of detractors and a lot of champions of it, and I'm kind of a little bit more towards the champion side, but not as high on it as maybe some people are. But I just still think it's something fun to experience. It's a fun journey. I didn't have as much of a problem with the shift towards the last act that a lot of people did, but maybe I'm just still basing it all off of the little voiceover in the trailer from Matthew McConaughey and how much it mesmerized me. So Matthew McConaughey can do that to people. So I think I'm just under the spell. So maybe I can't see all the issues with it. But I thought it was fun. I thought it's a good entry into the sci-fi genre. And I think it's something that might have a better time as time goes by. It might not have quite as strong detractors maybe after rewatches and after maybe a couple of years have gone by. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought it was good enough to put on the list. So Interstellar's my number 15.
Yeah, you definitely liked it a lot more than I did.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed that movie more as I've watched it. Like recently, not recently. I rewatched it after seeing it for the first time. I've enjoyed it more. It's growing on me. I still have some issues, but I'm definitely not one of the haters ever. Like people who, which I think is a little bit more of the Nolan backlash that you tend to get a little bit here.
Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, you can have problems with it and, kind of critique certain parts of it, but I think it'd be silly to say it's a overall bad movie, or a lot of people were saying it was one of the worst films of that year or one of the most disappointing ones. Let's not get too carried away. So that's my number 15. Amanda, take us to 14 land.
All right, well, last one, I promise. That's Sinister from 2012. This also sparked a sequel. It went in a different direction than what I guess I'm used to seeing in scary movies. It did put some kids in danger throughout the thing. That was basically what the problem was, what the risk was, is these kids and killing their families and whatever else that's happening in these videos.
Alert.
But hey, if you haven't seen it by now, you're off the tracks.
I'm off the tracks.
The main character, the main bad guy, dude, Magul, he creeps me out still. And I saw Sinister 2, and you'd have to see Sinister to see Sinister 2. There's no jumping around there, and you gotta get the full effect of Magul.
Isn't it more safe to be off the tracks?
Not necessarily.
There's a train coming,
not if you want to keep going fast.
Okay. Dan, have you seen Sinister?
I have not. No.
All right. Another one you ousted both of us with that one.
Hate. So much hate.
No hate. I haven't seen it.
Such hate.
I feel like you're prepared for us to hate it, and you're just going off of like insert reaction to hate now.
Yeah,
she's just hitting a button. Actually, that's not her real voice. It's pre-recorded.
But like you said, a lot of this list is things that really stuck with me and that I had a good time with. So
I got no problem with that. Like we said, we didn't have a horror film list, so this is your opportunity to get some love for the horror genre.
Somebody's got to.
All right, Dan, what's your number 14?
My number 14, again, definitely not a horror movie, unfortunately, but a movie from last year, my first movie from 2014. One that didn't make my top 10 that year, mostly because I didn't see it yet, but one of the best endings of a movie, period, and that's Whiplash. J.K. Simmons, well-known performance that won an Oscar, Miles Teller, this story about a guy, and it's just this unrelenting goal to be this infamous drummer, and it's the price of fame and like everything that goes into it. And never did I think a college or concert band would be that exciting, but it was. And, it's such a great film, and it's J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller, they're back and forth, and his performance is just phenomenal. It's deserving of all the praise that it definitely gets. So it's not much more to say about Whiplash that hasn't been said already, since it did recently come out last year. A movie that got huge at Sundance and just kind of rid that wave all the way to an Oscar nomination. But it's I don't know. I went into it hearing all the praise, and it ended up matching it. So it ended up being my number 14.
Yeah, I think you said it best. Almost the exact same that I would say, as far as it was not a film on my top 10 of 2014 either, because I hadn't seen it yet. But I said all year that I was searching for the my number one film of the year, and I didn't see it until January, I think, when I finally saw Whiplash, and it quickly became my number one film from 2014. So I am in complete agreement with you, Dan, on that one. So great pick there. For my number 14, I'm also going to pick a film from 2014 because I guess that just makes sense. And it was the film that was occupying one of my top spots for quite a while until I actually saw Whiplash. And again, I think I'm probably a little higher on this film than some people might be, but my number 14 is the film Fury. And I just love the ensemble that we got here. I think there were some incredible performances. I think that it pulled off something that should not be able to be successfully achieved, which is making tank battles interesting, because tanks do not move very fast and they don't remaneuver their guns very fast. And if you've ever played any old school video games with tanks, you quickly got bored with them because half the time you were just trying to get your gun into position faster than your opponent so you could finally fire. And it made all that interesting. I think there's some incredible scenes in there, some pretty high drama. That scene around the, I guess you can call it a dinner table in that one house is pretty incredible as far as how tense it gets. And I just liked a lot of this, but I'm also a sucker for any type of film in a war setting with any type of historical significance. So Fury was very high for me last year, so I put it up on number 14 for the half decade.
The one thing of that movie, I think of that dinner scene and just like it, like that, that moment. For whatever reason, last year had a lot of dinner scenes. And, I don't know, it just happened, but yeah, But Jay Bernthal, like his performance in that is kind of really stood out to me. I mean, there's even Shia LaBeouf is good in that movie. Yeah, so for sure, which is not easy to say.
Yeah, and Brad Pitt and Michael Pena. It's a good all-around ensemble, I think. So, Amanda, what do you have at number 13?
Okay, so I promised no more scary movies. That's the truth here. I'm gonna take it into some sci-fi though. 2012's Looper with Bruce Willis and JGL.
All right,
nice.
I think that definitely got some love when we were doing our sci-fi list as well. I think it's probably one of the best examples of a good science fiction film from the half decade. So I think that's a great choice. What made you put that one on your list?
I'm a big fan of both Bruce Willis and JGL, and seeing them together, I was excited for it. Plus, the whole sci-fi genre is just kind of, my thing too. So, going into this, I had high expectations, and it paid off. I think it was a really cool concept. I think that had some really cool visuals and shots, and definitely some good performances too.
Yeah, and similar to that, like the one scene that kind of sticks out to my mind is the disappearing body part scene. And I mean, though it's not a horror film, that was a truly horrific scene, and I love Looper. It was actually number 27 on my list, but that's Rian Johnson is a great director, and I'm really looking forward, after seeing Looper, what he can do with something like Star Wars. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are excited to see what he does in that franchise as well, and most of that is based on the positive reactions to Looper, so I think that's a great pick. Dan, what do you have at number 13?
My number 13 pick comes from 2012. Another pretty well-acclaimed film, so it's not too shocking here, and it's Zero Dark 30. Similar to Whiplash, it's a movie about a person that is kind of just on a full drive and dedicated to a certain goal. And this obviously is finding that of Osama bin Laden. Personally, I love procedural movies and kind of seeing the process of trying to, like, say, investigate and accomplish that goal. And I really found that fascinating. I love Jessica Chastain here, Jason Clarke, the ensemble as a whole, from Joel Edgerton, Mark Strong, even Chris Pratt shows up for a little bit. And I think that takes it over the top for me is the closing 20-30 minutes, the siege on bin Laden's home, and I thought that was masterfully directed and edited. Really little sound. It's just a lot of moving pieces, but it works really well. And yeah, I think it has a lot to say, and I think it's an important movie for sure, and a really strong screenplay overall. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Zero Dark 30.
Yeah, I think this is one that I need to rewatch for sure. I think I was a little, I wasn't as high on it as maybe I could have been after the initial watch, but I think I definitely just need to watch it again and make sure it wasn't just whatever mood or atmosphere I was watching it in, or was what had to do with it. But it definitely has a lot of universal praise, and I think the part that's probably the best thing about it is the ability from the director and the screenplay to kind of show a lot of things without necessarily telling you what's right and what's wrong, or kind of force feeding any type of political message. It just kind of shows you kind of to the best of its ability both sides of things. And I think that's why you said, when you say it's an important film, I think that's one of the reasons it's going to resonate for years to come.
Yeah, if you compare, like, say this to American Sniper, where, like, American Sniper, it feels like more of a raw movie. I think there's more of a solemnness to that of Zero Dark 30, where it's just kind of, I don't know, it's not necessarily a movie, a celebration, or looking at
right.
It's I think it looks at more of the subtlety, more complexity of the situation than that. So,
yeah, I would agree with that.
I did not see this.
All right. Well, when I rewatch it, you can see it for the first time.
You'll allow that? I can do that?
Yeah. For my number 13, I'm going to stick with the 2012 theme that Dan started there, and I'm on my historical kick, so I had Fury with my last pick, and I'll go ahead and do Lincoln with this pick. I mean, you got to have the only film that Daniel Day-Lewis appears in make your list, right? So, I mean, he only does a film every 5 years, so it's got to make your half-decade list. So I really like Lincoln. I like the idea in we talked about how the last 5 years has had so many superhero picks. It's probably had more biopic films than superhero films. I mean, it seems like we get about 10 of them a year at least, and so many of them are done so poorly, and so many of them can't show the restraint or the control that you get with Lincoln, and the decision to, obviously, number one, only show a section of his life, focus on a single event or something like that, and kind of really delve into it. And I think Lincoln did that very well. I think there's been a few others that have done that as well. But
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter? What?
No. But Lincoln really resonated with me. Performances were great from not just Daniel Day-Lewis, but Tommy Lee Jones, and the whole cast was pretty fantastic. And I like just about everything about it. It was in my top 3 or 4 for that year, so it was enough to stick with it. And just got it on Blu-ray for Christmas as well, so looking forward to it.
No, we just bought that.
Or we just bought it on Blu-ray, so looking forward to another rewatch of that one. So that's my number 13 pick.
I'm kind of similar to what I'll just echo what you said about Zero Dark 30 for Lincoln, and I like Lincoln, but I wondered too if I need to rewatch it. There's just elements of it that didn't ring as true as I would, not true, but necessarily didn't affect me as much as I would like them to. But there were things like Daniel Day-Lewis's performance, which were fantastic. Even like some of the smaller, like James Spader's role in it, and I did enjoy. And overall, I did like how, though it's a biopic, it wasn't necessarily the traditional biopic where it was his entire life. It just kind of focused on this one thing.
Right.
So.
And maybe when I rewatch it, it'll drop down for me, and maybe I won't like it quite as much, going mostly on that initial reaction to it. So sometimes that can not be the truest reaction. So, Amanda, what is your next pick?
My number 12 is my first cheat.
What?
Yes, and
there's no cheating.
There is some cheating going on here.
Is it not and from that the last 5 years? Is it?
No, it's from 1992.
It's not that big of a cheat. From 2012 and 2013, I've got Hunger Games and Catching Fire.
All right, I'll allow
it. You'll allow it.
As long as you're not going
to
say
I wasn't asking permission, bro. Yeah, so definitely sparked a huge following. I don't think we need to say much about these, but I was involved in the whole thing from reading the books to opening nights of the movies and all that good stuff. So definitely had some fun with those two.
I don't think you're alone. There's a lot of fans of the Hunger Game franchise. I'm a partial fan. I like some of the films, but I think... Go ahead, Dan.
Is Catching Fire the second one? I can't always...
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think that's my favorite of the franchise, so...
Yeah, I think so, me too.
Yeah, I like Catching Fire a lot. And I mean, the first one's good for what it was and kind of introducing things. I have a lot of problems with the two Mockingjay versions. But yeah, I think Hunger Games is definitely representative of the half decade as well. So I think that's a good pick. Dan, what do you got next?
My next one, I'm not going to talk a lot about it because we actually did a full review show of it, and it's Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained. As a huge Tarantino fan, I know I've obviously enjoyed Django Unchained a great deal. I've enjoyed it more and more as I've rewatched it time and time again. And I love the music, I love the action, I love the performances. It's pretty much everything I would hope for a Tarantino Western. So yeah, it's like I said, if you want to know more, you can go to our full review of it that we did about a month or so ago. So
yeah, obviously I'm in agreement with you as well. Django haters be damned. I think that's a great movie, and I think it's one, like you said, every time I watch it, I find something else to enjoy even more about it. So great pick for that one. And for my number 12, I'm going to go to the comedy that did make my list, and it's one that Amanda will be catching up with very soon. It was also mentioned when we did our top 10 comedies, and that's from 2011, and that's Crazy Stupid Love. I just think there's a lot of fun stuff about that.
You said that's so weird. Like, love was like a weird afterthought.
Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell. There's just some great scenes. There's some great dialogue. There's some twists and turns you might not see coming, and there's comedy throughout. So I think it does borderline on getting a little cheesy and a little kind of off the rails towards the end a tiny bit, but it wasn't enough to wreck the film for me, and it's still, I think, one of the better comedy films of the last 5 years. So Crazy Stupid Love's my next pick. All right, that means it is time for our last pick for this episode, closing it out with our number 11s. Amanda, what do you got?
Something that's already been mentioned, that's Fury from 2014 with Brad, Michael Pena, and Shia, all that good stuff. I think that...
I like that you're on a first name basis with all these guys.
We tight. So, and I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I think Brad Pitt gives a really cool performance in here, too. Definitely some really powerful scenes and some pretty gory scenes with some people getting exploded. But
yeah, some cleaning of the tank that was not.
Yeah, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right, good pick for number 11. Obviously, since I had it only a couple picks away. Dan, what do you got for your last one for today?
For my last one for today, so for 2015, my most anticipated film was Spectre, large part because of this movie, and that is Skyfall. So I'm not a huge James Bond fan. I enjoy most of the films, but what I love about Skyfall is just it to me sets a new bar for the franchise that's been around since the 60s. From the performances to the amazing cinematography from Roger Deakins, it's just gorgeous to look at. The silhouette fights, the amber fire, and the finale, and it Sam Mendes has a tradition of working with really great visuals and getting great cinematographers in his film, and he really brings the gravitas to this franchise that wasn't there before. And I don't know, and we talked about having, with comic book movies, like with the Avengers representing, and to me this kind of represents the blockbusters of the last decade, and I feel like this is it was my favorite action film of the last 5 years, and maybe to me second to maybe only Casino Royale is the best James Bond movie ever. So I am a fan of the Craig era, and Skyfall, I have yet to see Spectre, but I after everything I've heard about it, I'm a little scared now. But
yeah, a lot of people didn't fall too positively on that one. I want to rewatch Spectre actually, because I had a much more positive reaction than I think a lot of people after the initial watch. But Skyfall is a great pick. It was so close to making my list. I think if we were to expand it to our top 25, it definitely would have been in mine. I think a lot of what you said is right on as far as being one of the best action adventure films from the last half decade, being one of the best Bond films I've ever seen, which isn't saying a lot because I haven't seen most of the early stuff, before Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, but I'm also a fan of the Craig Bond films. So I think that's a great pick. I think that's definitely one that stands out from the last 5 years. And Amanda, you just caught up with all the Daniel Craig films, even though you had somehow seen them already once. But what do you think about Skyfall? Is that a good representation?
Was Skyfall the one where they had that torture scene?
No,
where he was
Casino Royale. The one
Okay.
within the chair and the
Yeah.
that's Casino Royale. Yeah.
That kind of messed me up a little bit, but I really do like the Craig Bond films, no matter how hard it is for me to stay awake during them.
They are kind of long. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
I'm just not good at staying awake in some movies, but I think that he is the perfect Bond, so I'm on board for that pick.
All right. For the last one for today, my number 11, Dan, I think you'll be in somewhat of agreement in this one, even though it is being put on here for mainly personal reasons. I think it's just something that just resonated a lot with me, and I think it's a very good character story and also a very good representation of maybe not, we're not talking about representation of films in the last 5 years, but representation of society in modern society and how much they can overreact, kind of the media culture and things of that nature. And there's just a lot of thematic resonance with this one. So it's from 2012, and that is the film The Hunt.
Nice.
I just think there's so much going on in this film, and Dan, I know you're a huge fan of Mads Mikkelsen, and he is amazing in this film. And I just like what it's doing here. I like how it's showing how easily something like that could transpire, and the how much of an effect something like that could have on someone's life. And yet we live in a society that's so quick to do that to anybody, even if they don't know him. If they do know him, it doesn't matter. And I just think it's a real touching character piece on that.
Yeah, it definitely shows like the hive mind that people can have and the effect of it. And yeah, and like you said, Mads Mikkelsen, I'm a fan of pretty much everything he does, and it's crazy seeing him something like that, and then like seeing him in something like Campbell, which like wow, it's like it's just he's got a lot of range for an actor. So.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's just quickly review our 20 through 11, giving people a quick snapshot of what we've done already. And then we'll be coming back next week to give you guys our 10 through 1 picks. So Amanda, what have you so far revealed on your list?
All right, got 20, The Heat from 2013. We got 19, The Wolfman, 2010. 18, Cabin in the Woods from 2012. 17, Star Trek Into Darkness from 2013. 16, The Other Guys from 2010. 15, Insidious from 2010 as well. 14, Sinister from 2012. 13, Looper from 2012. 12, My Cheat with the Hunger Games and Catching Fire from 2012 and 2013. And then number 11 with Fury.
All right. That's a lot of numbers. Dan, what do you got?
I was actually going to same thing, yeah. Number 20, I have Mother. 19, Nebraska. 18, Starred Up. 17, Senna. 16, Life of Pi. 15, Buck. 14, Whiplash. 13, Zero Dark 30. 12, Django Unchained. And 11, Skyfall.
All right, and my 20 was Calvary, 19, The Descendants, 18, The Book Thief, 17, Drive, 16, The Avengers, 15, Interstellar, 14, Fury, 13, Lincoln, 12, Crazy Stupid Love, and 11, The Hunt. So that is our first half of our top 20 films of the half decade. Let us know your thoughts on which films have shown up so far, and also let us know your thoughts on which films you expect to see the rest of the way. And obviously interact with us on Facebook, Geekcast Radio Network. You can also go to the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the actual episode post, and we definitely will interact and reply to any comments made there. You can also follow the show on Twitter. The show's Twitter handle is @CinemaGeekcast. Amanda, what's your Twitter?
Hard Candy Mandy, Eyes No Wise.
Dan, what's your Twitter?
I'm @Movie Revolt.
And mine is @Optimus Solo. So we hope you enjoyed our first episode of 2016. Like I said, we'll be back next week to finish off the list, and then it's on to the top films of 2015 soon after that. So we hope you had a good time, and we will see you next week.